Hello, welcome back to the Viewscreen. Today is November 3rd, and I'm one of your hosts, Amy Nelson.
I'm your other host, Kelvin Wood. The Viewscreen is your weekly Star Trek magazine show, streaming live on YouTube, and we're bringing you news, special features, guests, and lots of love for our chosen Star Trek family all around the world.
Now, if you're not able to tune in live, because I know we've had some time changes going on here, the temporal flux is not stable. You can catch this on replay. Just go to YouTube, or you can listen to us as a podcast, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're a returning viewer, a very warm welcome back to the show. We really appreciate all of your support. If you're new here, a massive welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Please try and subscribe to our channel, the BQN Collective, on YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe button and the alert to make sure you never miss any episodes of the Viewscreen. We've currently got 113 subscribers, so we're after some more. But we do have over 200 videos on our YouTube channel for shows all across the network.
Yeah, and we would also like to invite you to our Discord group. There's a link in our show notes. Or if you're on Facebook, come join us there. It's the BQN Collective. We've got our chat open, so if you're watching us live, please say hi. We love interacting with you.
So, Amy, time has returned. We're now 8 hours apart. Your clocks have gone back. Are you going to share with the viewers what you did this morning?
Well, okay. Half of your clocks change automatically because they're hooked up to Wi-Fi, and the other half did not change. And I'm running around. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be late doing makeup, hair, showering. I get on and I'm like, where is everyone? I'm frantically texting Kelvin. I had a scare, not going to lie. So,
well, better early than late. I guess if we were doing the show when we spring forward, that might have been more of an issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Lower Decks, we've got episode 3.
Yeah.
Any
I really enjoyed it. I love my chronology and continuity. And we had a star date in this week's episode. So it's definitely we're in 2382 in this episode of Lower Decks. So it's literally a couple of months away from when Prodigy starts. So all of the series have now knitted together. Lower Decks into Prodigy, Prodigy into Picard. There's a nice continuous timeline. And I love that.
Yes, makes you feel so better. No more holes.
Exactly. Oh, speaking of time, I've got a confession to make. James is downstairs at the moment doing something what some people would find abhorrent at this time of the year.
He's put
the Christmas tree up.
What on earth? James, what are you doing? You can't even wait.
No, I know it's not. I know you guys don't have bonfire night. It's a British tradition, which is on the 5th of November. It's really early to put the tree up if it goes up before bonfire night. But it just makes us so happy in the lounge. It looks so twinkly, and I've got all the little Hallmark ships ready to go on there as well. So we couldn't wait. Yeah, we're having 2 months of Christmas.
Oh my goodness. Now, is there music going on? Christmas music. Okay. So it's full blown. We are in Christmas mode.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, I do know you have commented many times that you like the glow of the tree at night.
Yeah,
it is
lovely.
Nice.
And while we're out celebrating, there's a birthday today. It is Captain Jeremiah's birthday, host of the Captain's Couch. So happy birthday, Jeremiah.
All right. And yes, we are donning our Star Trek cruise shirts. Thanks, Jonathan, for pointing that out. Hopefully you're wearing yours too. Which cruise is your shirt from? That's
It is 5.
Okay. All right. So I've got the 4. All right. Very good. Well,
Shall we see what's coming up on today's show?
This is sort of our penultimate episode.
Indeed, show 9.
Yes. Well, who do we have with us?
Okay, coming up on today's show, Kristen is here as usual with all of news and trending. Hey.
And we have with us my high school friend, Dan Holmes, talking to us about making models.
Hey, Dan. And we welcome D&D games master and storyteller Natali's here. Hey.
Very excited for today's show. Some hobbies, and I'm excited.
Hobbies and pastimes.
Yes.
Right, well, shall we begin?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Let's head over to the newsroom.
Hello there, Kristen.
9 weeks in, and I still laugh every time you pop up on that chair.
I think it's one of my favorite parts of the week.
We're all wearing Star Trek cruise shirts.
So I didn't know that was supposed to be a thing. And when I saw you two talking about it, I've literally just done a wardrobe change in like 10 seconds. I ran to my closet and I was like, it was the yellow one that I could find. Not my favorite. Better than the gray, though.
Yes, agreed. The gray is
gray
atrocious.
Washes you right out, doesn't it? So
yeah, it does.
Yes,
yeah,
but no,
we can nearly make a star date with our numbers. We've got 4, 7, 5. It's a bit like a TNG star date.
I was looking for my one from the cruise too, because that was my first one, but it was buried. So anyway, so here is this one has a special place in my heart because this is the cruise I met the two of you.
Yes.
Oh.
So I can't not love this cruise.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well,
what have we got today, Kristen?
We've got some fun stuff today. It was a very slow news week right up until Friday. And then all of this stuff kind of drops. So again, I'm frantically sitting there during my lunch hour at work, just getting my information down. So let's get started with our usual happy birthday episode. And today is the 24th birthday of Riddles. And I don't know how anyone else feels about this episode. I think it is so sweet the way that Neelix stepped in to support Tuvok during this problem. And I really think it gave Tim Russ an opportunity to, expand his acting. Because when you play a Vulcan, you get a pretty streamlined role that you can do. So this allowed for some variety. So 24 years ago today, Riddles aired on Voyager.
Oh, lovely. I always remember this episode because of the cake. Doesn't he start doing a graph on a cake?
He does, yeah. What a fun, and it's somebody who works with people who do have, lower IQs. And again, don't get mad at me. They communicate in very unique ways. And a lot of times how they act and their behaviors, which seem counterproductive from the outside, are actually very much their way of communicating. And when they get angry and get violent, it's because we're not understanding them. And so they're getting frustrated with the situation. So it was very interesting to see how they sort of portrayed that into his struggle in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. And then of course we have Meme of the Week. And I just love this. Total Eclipse of the Heart is one of my favorite songs. I think it's hilarious. And so I've been singing this all week, where it's like Turn Around Bright Eyes. And then I'm finishing it with Today is a Good Day to Die. And I was like, you know what? The song is really just rewriting itself.
Yes, it really is. That's funny you said that, because there is a artwork on my assistant principal's wall that says, "Today is a good day." And you just can't help but say, to die.
I don't know how appropriate that would be in a school.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. No.
Oh, it's funny.
I love that. Great power ballad.
It is a great power ballad. It's one of my karaoke go-tos for sure.
Very nice.
Next we also have a little in memoriam. So Terry Garr passed away this week. She passed just before what would have been her 80th birthday on December 11th. And she starred in the 1968 episode Assignment Earth. And she was a formidable woman who really stood up to Gene Roddenberry's sexism on set. So you can see the photo I have displayed here of her on set. And Gene came back saying he was insisting that her skirt was 2 inches shorter.
Oh.
And I'm like, how much shorter do we need to? This is already quite,
Short.
Yes, short. And he was saying, no, 2 inches. She walked off set in protest.
Oh.
And it wasn't until some convincing and some apologies and all that she came back on. But so she did the episode, but unfortunately the whole experience soured her opinion of the whole Star Trek franchise. And she never appeared in another episode.
I was wondering because she, never saw her at conventions and sort of just that one-off guest appearance.
Yeah.
Which is interesting as well because Assignment Earth was almost a little bit of a pilot concept in itself. It was going to be a spin-off show.
Yes.
With Gary Seven and intendedly her character as well. So that's interesting. It didn't get picked up, but if it had, would she have returned for the money?
Right.
And I wonder if one of the reasons it didn't get picked up was because this whole thing came out that she was not willing to return.
Interesting.
And if she wasn't there, then they didn't want to do it. So either way, did Gene cost us a whole new line of canon potentially through this spinoff? And I mean, I don't want to speak poorly of a man who had a great vision, but sometimes certain thoughts are best just kept in your head. Yeah.
Yes.
And for anyone else who's wondering why she looks familiar, if you are a Friends fan, she also played Phoebe's mom, Phoebe.
Yes.
So who tried to sell the house that did not have a bathroom. But the ocean is right there.
I remember her because she gives Phoebe the little pugly puppy that's my favorite episode of hers.
Me too. That made me want a pug for so long.
I know.
They're so cute until I found out that the vet bills due to their breathing issues would bankrupt me. So, yeah.
My favorite dog breed.
And of course, young Frankenstein. Yes, you know what? She had such an impactful film career. Go look her up on IMDb. There are a few different articles out right now of sci-fi movies that she was in that you could watch to honor her. She really was wonderful. She did pass away of MS. She had a long struggle with it. And, I really hope that her next journey is going well so far. And, Terry, don't be afraid to come visit. So celebrating the life of an amazing woman who was not afraid to stand up to Gene Roddenberry.
Nice.
Yes. Next, we have more things again to spend money on. This is just what I do. I'm like, let's spend our money. So season 2 is officially dropping on Blu-ray and DVD on November 12th. So a week from this coming Tuesday. It will have all 20 episodes and 2 featurettes, which look really cool. So one will be Producing Prodigy. So this is where the producers and Will Wheaton will discuss what it was like creating a show for a whole new type of audience with Prodigy and who it's reaching that the existing shows didn't, and hopefully pulling them in to become part of the family. And how Prodigy fits into the greater canon. So I know, Kelvin, you will probably be interested in that with your love of canon and all of that. And then the Odyssey of Prodigy will be the other featurette. And this is where they'll be discussing the Protostar crew will be coming in, or how the Protostar crew came in from being heroes all the way up to season 2, talking about the return of Wesley Crusher and how that return affected him. So really just the journey of Prodigy from season 1 really up until the end of season 2. So
Well, Ron makes a good point in the
Yeah.
chat that Prodigy season 2 was like Voyager season 8. So
Everything we missed with the
Yeah.
very
connecting.
quick ending of Voyager. There's the fireworks and go.
Yeah.
And we're done.
I mean, I want to put a plea out there. If anyone's not seen Prodigy, for whatever reason, you think it may be disconnected or it's a children's show, you must go and watch it. It's got so much continuity to a lot of legacy characters. And yeah, it was just an unexpectedly brilliant season. We were looking forward to it, but nobody expected it to be that good with its story. So you must go and watch those 20 episodes. That's an order.
Yeah, I really agree because I feel like the way that they wrote it is such a different type of storytelling because it's not, I mean, it is one big season, but there's these little roller coasters where you get this little story in like 5 episodes and this little story in 4 episodes. And so we're getting, for those that don't like an entire big season arc, we're getting little stories within the big arc. And it really is enjoyable. I second that, and yes, also recommend it.
Yes. And I think that was one of the problems that people had with Picard was it was one big arc. And if you forgot a tiny little detail from one of the first episodes, then you were suddenly thrown off in the later ones and you had to go back and rewatch because you had a week between each one. It's more of a binging type format. So the fact that there's just little ones makes it more digestible for people. And again, I had problems getting it up here, so I have not seen all of season 2. But now that it's coming out on Blu-ray, DVD, now I've got it. So it's much easier.
Yay!
Because I still have a DVD player.
Yeah, I was wondering why they're still producing. So there are DVD players. I thought they just all were Blu-ray now.
Well, mine's like 30 years old, but
I took a DVD out last week. I wanted to watch one of the special features on one of the DS9 box sets. I had the disc in my hand and then realized I had nowhere to put it in.
Oh.
So I put it in the Xbox.
Yeah.
And it said, this is a region 1 DVD. It won't play because you're region 2. I was like, oh, that's right. I used to pack all of my old DVD players, so they were multi-region.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Interesting.
So I've got a lot of ornamental DVDs now just to look at the boxes and can't really access.
You could just tie some string around them and hang all the DVDs label side out on your Christmas tree.
Nice.
Something also that hit this week that was really cute was a new World of Warships and Star Trek collaboration coming out. So we're talking about, pastimes and some gaming today. So this looks really amazing. The graphics blew my mind, especially the Borg aircraft carrier. Get out of town. It looks phenomenal. If you go on to World of Warships website, they've got a little clip of what everything looks like. Please excuse my extremely tiny print this morning. But there will be new operations, rewards, camouflages, ships, commanders. So anyway, the setting is they are on Vulcan for a scientific seminar and everybody is there, right? The Federation, the Klingons, the Vulcans, of course. I think even they said some Romulans were there. Like this was an all hands on deck seminar, and the Borg attack, of course, right? It's an easy target. It's right there. So it's how are we going to fight back against this attack? And you get to pick from commanders including Picard, Spock, Sela, and Gowron. So nice. I love that we're getting some commanders from outside of the Federation, especially Sela. I'm excited to see her return in some capacity. And then you get all of your different ships, so destroyers, cruisers, battleships, the new aircraft carrier, which you'll see there's the Borg, and then of course the Federation one. And then you have to unlock your Enterprise D, or probably pay. I mean, I'm sure there will always be a pay option. But this looks like a really cool new game to engage in.
Forgive my ignorance. Is this a computer game, a game on your phone? Is it a board game? What's the format?
Again, I'm not the smartest with this. It's not a board game, but my understanding is it is going to be a computer game.
Right, lovely.
Yes.
Cool. And
I don't know that Captain Cisco is not in the game. He just wasn't listed on the description. So maybe he is in the game. I don't know. I hope so.
All right. Let us know, Ron.
Yes. Oh, and then we have one other little thing here, which I thought was amazing. So Whoopi Goldberg actually just posted a picture of herself wearing the one that was gifted to her. So I actually never knew this, that the real catalyst for Leonard Nimoy's passing was his battle with COPD, which, if anyone doesn't know what that means, it means you can take in air fine, but you can't expel your nitrogen? No.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. Again, I'm not a math or a science person. You can't expel your carbon dioxide, so you're always kind of feeling like you're choking. Very very horrible thing that you have to have a puffer. Some people have to be on 24/7 oxygen. It is very, very stressful on your body. So Prop Store is unveiling a selection of Leonard Nimoy's personal collection of like doodads and tchotchkes that will be auctioned between November 14th and 17th, curated by Julie Nimoy. And the proceeds will be going to, of course, COPD research, but also building his memorial sculpture at the Museum of Science in Boston.
Oh, lovely.
So when that finally goes up, that's it. I'm going to Massachusetts.
Yes.
Get me my plane ticket immediately. Amy, I'll meet you there.
We have friends there, so
we may know a couple people, because there have been so many reasons that I want to go. There's so many amazing things I want to see, but a new Star Trek monument for Nimoy, say less, right? So one of these pendants that has actually gone up into space will be part of that. It's expected to fetch between $50,000 to $100,000.
Wow.
For a itty bitty little pendant, but you know what? There's rich people out there, and if you want something like this, your money's going to go to a really good cause. And then Kelvin, I thought of you. One of the other things that's going up includes his a 2015 Hallmark keepsake from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, the Needs of the Many Christmas ornaments.
Oh.
So, I don't know. November 14th to 17th, maybe go throw in a bid.
If it's £10,000, I think I'll stick to eBay. But
okay.
I appreciate.
This one was touched by Nimoy.
A Nimoy by Nimoy.
Yes.
So when I saw that one of the items was going to be a Christmas ornament, I'm like, oh, Kelvin. Oh, maybe one day when we all collectively win the lottery.
Yeah. I've just said about putting the tree up. We have to secure the tree to the wall in the corner now because of the weight of all of the starships on it. It pulls it forward. So yeah,
wow.
We have to use cotton to affix it to the wall.
Oh goodness,
that's impressive.
That takes a lot of ships.
That's a lot of ships. Wow. Oh, and then next, do we have an next, or is this it for the week? I think this might be it for the week.
Yes, this is it.
This is it. Okay. So I'm not doing any spoilers on Lower Decks yet. One, because I have yet to watch any, because I'm waiting for a good binge session for myself, and two, because I just don't like spoilers. So we'll talk about it once it's all aired, and hopefully everyone's caught up. So maybe next season. Yeah. We'll talk about it on All Good Things.
But if people do want to hear more about the show and want to get involved with an episode breakdown, Amy, I believe you're covering them.
Yes, we are. Listen to our podcast, Union Federation. I co-host that, and we're breaking down the episodes. And then we also have Infinite Diversity, another podcast with Chrissy and Thad that break down the episodes as well. So a couple options for you to catch up on your new Star Trek.
Awesome.
Great, good stuff. Yeah. Let's bring today's guests in and see what they thought of the news. Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Natali. What do you think? Are you going to be making any bids on Nimoy merchandise anytime soon?
Well, 50,000 sounds a bit beyond my capabilities with student loans and everything. Dan, how much do you think you can shell out for Nimoy's tchotchkes?
I'll pop in a couple of 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could buy a finger each.
There you go. There you go. And I'm coming from Canada with Canadian money. It's essentially useless anywhere else.
Well, we have Ron in the chat who says the World of Warships is available on PS4 and Xbox One, and
Awesome.
played it.
It is also a computer game available on Steam as well.
Okay, perfect. So the new release, the new story, the new game coming up will be available on all those platforms, I'm assuming. We have one of those. Justin plays PS4 or Xbox. I don't know. Something. So maybe I'll actually get a game. Maybe I'll actually get a game because it looks good. The last time I played a video game was 007 on
GoldenEye.
Nintendo 64.
on GoldenEye, and I slapped a person to death and then I got stuck in the corner, and that was when I ended my gaming career.
Wow, so retro. Everyone had GoldenEye. It was such a game of the moment, wasn't it?
It was an amazing game.
Brilliant. Dan, what in the news piqued your interest?
Well, when you talked about Terry Garr, the first thing that went to my mind was Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's where I first saw her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was a great loss. Tootsie, Young Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah, Tootsie.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep. She was an iconic role.
She
Yeah.
really, really was. So for her to show up and do that role in Friends too, with her history behind her, that was, I didn't have full understanding of that impact at the time. And so to rewatch it now, knowing who she is, I'm like, man, they must have enticed her to come.
Your comment about her hemline too. I've wondered why throughout the years that they haven't tried to do a spin-off like that. And that's the first time I've heard that. So that really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I know they tried a couple of times to make that a backdoor pilot, but
Right.
Yeah. But she was so upset with the situation. But you know what? Good for her for putting her foot down.
yeah.
Yeah.
And her skirt hem.
And keeping her skirt down. Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, guys. Kristen, thank you as always for all of your excellent research and presentation. And we'll see you all a little later in the show.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, Amy, what have we got next?
Oh my goodness, you guys are in for a real treat. My good friend Dan Holmes, who I've known from high school way back in the day, but he has such a fandom of everything. So I'm so glad that Dan could join us today. Welcome, Dan, to the Viewscreen.
hi everybody.
And he's here because he builds a lot of things, models, which I am not familiar with. But before getting into it, I just wanted to walk down memory lane.
Oh, wow.
This is our senior pictures back in 1991, where we attended Olympus High School. And yes, this is what I envision Dan looks like, and I hope he still envisions me.
Amy, there's a lot of backcombing going on there in that hair. Look at
That's
the
right.
Great you've got it today.
Man.
That's amazing. And Dan, look at you.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very handsome.
You're probably the person I have stayed friends with the longest in my life.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's, again, more praise to Dan, because I'd mentioned on my STLV recap that, I get freaked out talking to famous people. But Dan gave me the confidence. He has been talking about John Eves for many years. And he's like, I know him. He's a great guy. Just go up and So I finally did. Again, thanks to Dan, I now know John Eves.
He's
So
a great
thank
guy.
you for
I've known
that.
him a couple of decades.
Yeah, right. Now, so how did you meet him?
The first time was at a couple of conventions. You know, we just see each other at various model making conventions. A particular one I go to is Wonderfest in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's a small sci-fi horror convention that it's still small, so you still get a lot of industry people there, and they just hang out as people. And then he actually moved near me up in Wyoming and came down to a couple of conventions from that. And his daughter and my daughter are really pretty close to the same age, so they hit it off. So that's ended up how we got to be pretty good friends.
Got it. All right.
You're forgetting something else, Amy.
What?
One of your first cosplay costumes.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, you guys. So Dan's daughter, amazing, made for me Deanna Troy's blue dress from season 3 and 4. Yes, with the off center and the yep. That was pretty hand dyed, handmade. Is unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah, she spent a lot of time with that. I'm glad it turned out the way it did. She was working at the costume department of her high school in the theater department, and when you wanted to dress, I was like, hey, I think I know somebody that might be able to help you out there.
Brilliant! Yep. What a creative family.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So Dan, talk to me.
So I'm going to admit here, I don't have a ton of Star Trek models photographed. I've built a lot of Trek over my lifetime, but most of my models last for about 15 minutes after I take the picture, and then they explode. So these are what I still got. In fact, that Jeep right there isn't still around. It's in pieces up in my office. But that's from the Gundam universe. It's just a little military Jeep. It's about 3.5 inches long, something like that. That was the first time I got into using oil paints to weather stuff. So that's a airbrushed green, and then a mixture of various oil paints to give it those rust streaks. Just for one of the first times I did that, I took a silver at Wonderfest with that. I think it was a silver.
So, is it a kit or are you?
Yeah, that
building?
Actually was a kit.
Okay.
It's in fact, the only thing that's not stock on it is there's a cat whisker as the antenna. You can kind of see it on that right-hand picture there going up. We had a cat with really long whiskers and waited until one of them fell out, and I was able to find it and use that as a radio antenna.
Wow. That's creative.
And I am like,
Dan, what do you mean when you say your models explode?
Do these things, I need special glasses. So I've got a pair of 6-power reading glasses that I got on Amazon to be able to do this kind of stuff. And you'll notice, I'm a coffee fiend. I don't have any coffee around here, so that because when I'm working, I can't get the shakes for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, earlier you just mentioned a few minutes after you build your models, they tend to explode. What can you just tell us what you mean by that? Do you create them for shots and want to blow them up?
And two, I don't build them. I don't build them necessarily to show off. I build them for just the actual enjoyment anymore. I used to take them to competitions and things like that, and I did that. It's stressful, and so this is a hobby. I just build it for myself now. So if they turn out, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I got plenty more. You can see them all behind me.
So now we're talking about taking them. So these medals here.
Yeah, so I wanted to put a plug in for my model club here in Colorado. That's one of the models. That's one of the medals we hand out. We call ourselves the Colorado Modeling Militia Enjoying Sci-Fi, the Commies. Obviously, with a name like that, we don't take ourselves very seriously. So you can see our third place model that I got for something I can't remember what award is Thirst. There's an ST there.
Got it, instead of third.
Yeah.
Thirst.
So our other T-shirts that we've got, subverting the masses one hobby shop at a time, and we've got all kinds of snarky stuff in there. Yeah, I started it with 2 other guys when I first moved to Colorado in 2003.
So
then,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So how often are you meeting for this club?
In person, we meet twice a month, one in the basement of a hobby shop in Aurora, Colorado, and another hobby shop in Westminster. Third Sunday of the month, Colpar Hobby Town, little plug. Start at 1 o'clock and we go until we get hungry, and then we go eat dinner.
Nice.
And there's probably about 15 to 20 of us that show up. All great people. And now, however, with the magic of the apocalypse, we also meet once a week on Zoom now. And which, if there's one good thing that has come out of the apocalypse, it's that I've got friends now all over the country and all over the world that come to these Zooms that I only talk for 10 minutes every 2 years at a convention, and now they're some of my best friends because I've spent all this time in group therapy with them.
Yes. That's what it is. Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's finding your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So that Cthulhu that's in the center there, I also got a silver for that at Wonderfest as well. It's still around because my son needed it in a RPG that he was doing at school. And so I kind of sort of glued it back together a couple of weeks ago. You can see it's all kind of damaged and like, spines are broken off and things like that. So that's what I mean, Kelvin, that they just don't last.
I see.
The paint that I used, or on this one at least, was very, very fragile. It's a taxidermy paint. Very, very fragile. So, bouncing around in an airplane or bouncing around in the trunk of my car, on the way to Wonderfest, just beats them up. So, I do it all for the enjoyment of it. But like this was all airbrushed with various taxidermy paints. You can see all the repairs I've had to do over it on it. But and then that one on the right is from Reaper Miniatures. My wife is a OBGYN, and she collects fertility idols from various cultures. Well, Reaper put out a fertility idol. It's considered, it's one of the earliest, suddenly I'm blanking on the name of it. Maybe somebody in the chat will come up with it. But it's considered one of the very first fertility idols ever created. And they put out a miniature of it. It's about yay tall. And so a couple of years I painted it up and gave it to her.
Oh, how lovely. Well, that's good. Ron was very curious about the fertility model, so thank you for explaining that.
I, when we go off screen, I'll find the name of it. I believe it was found in the south of France, but I can't remember. There's a Wikipedia page on it. I'll find it.
Oh, wow, great.
I think the only fertility idol I'm aware of is the Horgon.
Nice.
Poe's X-wing from the Last Jedi that he used to go start working on the Star Destroyer attack. Again, just another model I finished during the apocalypse, and the only reason why I've got decent photos of that is I finally got myself a photo booth.
And yes, can we talk about like photographing these models? Like I'm looked at that you sent me on Flickr, I think it was, and there is a skill in making them look good and showing off the work that you've done. Have you did you teach yourself? Did you take a class? Like, did you build yourself a little photography studio?
Smart people and eating their brains. So it's all just, reiteration, constant improvement, constant trying new things. With that particular one, you can see I lost the focus there in the back because I had a very narrow depth of field on the camera. I was playing. I had a DSLR and I was just playing around with the settings on that. Eventually I was going to try to combine them to focus stack, but as you can see in my handle there, if there's something to nerd out about, I will. And so that starting to photograph some of these models actually sent me down a complete rabbit hole into cameras and lighting and all of this kind of stuff. And sometimes I've got more money than brains, so it's kind of fun to do all of this stuff. I consider adulthood the chance you get to do all the crazy stuff you thought of as a kid.
Yeah.
And so like that
Wow.
that continuous improvement that I was talking about, like that X-Wing there, I hate decals. I hate the little, you soak them in water and you put them on, and that thing came with all the decals. So I was trying to learn color theory enough that I could replicate that orange. Those aren't decals, that's hand painted.
Oh.
I mixed up that orange myself.
Oh, nice.
I only use about a half a dozen colors anymore, and I mix everything myself. I actually credit Rick Sternbach for going down a rabbit hole of color theory. It was actually on this Cthulhu that I was not understanding how paints layered. I was using a lot of transparent paints, and I couldn't understand how the colors were shifting when I was layering them all, because I didn't understand how pigments worked. Well, again, I was talking to him, and that just sent me down an entire rabbit hole of learning about artist pigments and how those interact. He suggested I get a little watercolor kit. Well, I get a little watercolor kit to mess around with, and I happen to like to paint flowers. So I go to the botanic gardens, and I discover that watercolors are fucking hard. So I'm out there, doodling up some flowers, just knocking it back. And this old guy comes up to me and says, you need some help? I'm like, yeah. So he comes up to me, and I learned about this whole thing called plein air landscape painting. And so that, again, sent me down a rabbit hole. I now go out a couple of times a month and do landscape oils and all kinds of big stuff, because I've learned about pigments. And so I actually blame Rick Sternbach for giving me an entirely new hobby.
Nice. Well, we have Ryan in the chat is asking if that's a BB-8 at the top.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it is here. Let me double check. It is here on my.
Oh, wow.
Aww.
There's a little mini BB-8 up there. Yeah, it's kind of dusty.
Nice.
Does he pop out, or is it fully integrated?
Yeah, it's not coming out.
Yeah, okay, please don't break it.
And
I don't want that on my conscience.
One other thing that you might laugh at is there's no glass in this. This was my tribute to the old filming models. They never put the glass in there in the filming miniatures, because it would do too much reflection in the studio lights.
Of course.
Right. Very nice. So you have a couple of busts here. Yeah,
various aliens. I actually just had a lot of green paint left over from this Cthulhu, so I just did more various aliens. This guy was my first attempt at trying to do pastel weathering, basically taking ground up soft pastels and brushing them on there and getting it to get that subtle. You can see on the picture there the subtle shading and things like that. And then that demon on the right was another attempt at doing that.
Nice.
I actually did that at in a class at Wonderfest.
Oh. And so how long would it take you to complete, say, something that size, that bust there?
I think I've got maybe 6 hours in this.
Okay.
Maybe. That demon was 8 hours in a class.
Okay.
A lot of it depends. Like this Cthulhu, since I didn't understand what I was doing, I've probably got 40 plus hours into it, because I would do something and I'm like, man, that doesn't look right. So I'd strip it down and try again. But now I'm much faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what materials do you use, Dan? You mentioned earlier about model making kits, but have you kind of gone down the 3D printing route to get?
So I do.
How has things moved on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do a lot of 3D printing as well, and print stuff out of resin and FDM. Those particular models that you've got up there, the Darth Vader's tie is a styrene kit from Bandai, and then the other two are actually resin. So what will happen is somebody will, this is before 3D printing was around, so somebody actually sculpted this and then put rubber all around it, and then would make a mold and then cast it up.
Mm.
But yeah, I've got some stuff that I'm working on down here that's 3D printed. I've got a bust of Voldemort.
Oh,
nice.
So stuff like that. Let's see. I don't. Yeah, there's a 3D print of Cthulhu that I just haven't started on it yet. But most of what I've been playing with lately is resin figures.
Right. And is it purely for the hobby side of this, as a way to relax, unwind, be creative, or
That's
do you commercialize any of this? Do you do any commission pieces?
I've done commissions in the past. I don't generally anymore. The old adage of don't turn your hobby into your work is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
This is pure pleasure. It's pure fun, and if it isn't fun, then I go find something else to do. If I'm not having a good time doing some of this stuff, I know a lot of my friends get frustrated working on them and things like that. And put it down. Life is too short not to have fun. Go find something else. I mean, now, granted, that's why I've got so many hobbies around here. But
yes.
if it's not fun, give it up.
Yes. And again, how small is too small, Dan?
So that's pretty small.
Yeah.
In fact, Kelvin, it exploded right after I got that photo. So here it is in its pieces and parts. But I can show you. This is 144th scale. So it's all in a baggie.
Wow.
Because the ATST right now is pretending to be an Ed 209 and just has the legs sticking out. But yeah, I mean, you can see they're pretty small.
Yeah.
And even the blaster on that's bent, blah blah blah. So again, learning continuous improvement type of thing, right? So that was another one where I mixed all the colors, even that gray and that orange. There's no decals on here. It's all hand painted, etc.
Wow.
Great.
All right.
Yes, the Burger King. That was another one from Wonderfest, where it was an Elvis eating a cheeseburger. So I ended up calling it the Burger King.
Oh, that's funny.
I was actually painting this up for our local show, and then took it to Wonderfest. One thing I wanted to learn how to do is the new hotness is called one source lighting. So you have a light source on something that's shining and coming through, and I didn't have enough time to learn how to do it on this one, but eventually I'm going to repaint it so that the burger is lit. I got to figure out, is it the lettuce that's emitting the light, is it the bun, or is it the meat that's actually emitting the light? So that'll dictate what the color temperature is. I've been trying to learn color theory over the last little while.
Wow.
So this is another one mixed. I used 3 colors on this and then mixed everything off of that. 3 colors plus white.
Wow.
And then that pink tank, you were asking about how long it takes. This was a 6-hour build challenge that my club had that we came up with. So it was grab a model completely out of the box. Since it's at the hobby shop, we ended up just buying everything up there and assemble it and paint it. But you had to paint it with pink sparkle paint.
Was that just the challenge of the week or something then? Was that what was the assignment?
I did it a couple of years ago. So that's all airbrushed pink sparkle camouflage. I can't even remember what kind of tank that is. Is it a British Centurion maybe?
Yeah, it's a fabulous tank.
I'm probably talking to the wrong crowd to identify it. I think it's a Centurion, but I can't remember.
Right. Well, let's bring in everyone else and see what they think of these models. Natali.
So something that got brought up in the chat that I had to quickly look up. So the fertility idol is the Venus of Willendorf, which is over 30,000 years old.
Wow.
It is one of the earliest depictions of feminine, and we call it a fertility idol because of its exaggerated features, but it's one of the earliest depictions we have of like what we're fairly sure is a worshipped figure.
Yeah. An ideal body type, if you will.
Yeah. This is the ideal body.
Yeah.
And then I noticed, so you do Gundam figures, so like Gunpla. Was that I thought I recognized the symbol on the Jeep, because I'm a big Century Zero nerd. Was that the Principality of Zeon?
It is.
Nice.
Wow.
It is.
To give the really short and quick of it, the first Gundam series that came out back in the 70s is the conflict between the Principality of Zeon and then the Earth Federation. The Gundam is the good guys in the Earth Federation. The Principality of Zeon is the more fascist bad guys, at least as far as they were written back then. And I always liked the design of a lot of their stuff better. That's cool.
I agree with you. And I'm gonna be honest. I don't watch a lot of Gundam. I've seen a few of the series, but not a lot of the later stuff. But I always liked the designs of the Zeon stuff a little bit better. It's got it's not as flowing. It's a little more angular and blocky. I find it more interesting to paint. So I'm not looking at it from a fandom standpoint. It's more of a, oh, that looks like it'll be fun to paint, fun to build.
Right.
Yeah, that's what got me into Gundam in the first place. It's like, these things look cool. And then I watched a couple series and figured out which I liked story-wise, but I'll be the first to say, like, the first thing that got me into it is those old style bad guy Gundam designs. They were just fun from a design perspective.
The old Zaku suit and some of those things. And like, you know, I do a lot of Star Wars stuff because I like beating my models up. I like heavy weathering and making them look used. And, you know, that universe always made things look a lot more used. You know, TOS has always been my jam. That was always my favorite. But everything looked clean and sleek, which fit the ideals of the show. So that's not a knock on it. But I've always liked the look of the beat up stuff.
Yeah.
Kristen, is there anything you want to ask Dan about the models?
Have you made any models, Kristen?
When I was young and next generation models were popular, I would put them together. But I think I said on the last episode, then my attention went elsewhere and they just remained unpainted. So they were just these plastic glued together ships that sat on my
nothing wrong with that. Did you have fun with it? That's the important part.
Exactly. And you know, I think the one thing I love about these types of hobbies is they really encourage lifelong learning. Right. So, you know, Dan, you were saying that you're learning about color theory and you know, branching out that way. And it's so important to keep our brains constantly learning and going, so that we don't become stagnant. You know, I felt the same thing when I picked up cross stitch a few years ago, and it was just something new to learn and so much fun and at times frustrating, but overall just really, really good.
It's also been a hobby I've been able to share with both of my kids too. You know, both my son and my daughter still build stuff. My daughter's 23, still does stuff like that.
Wow, very cool.
Dan, how would you encourage people to get involved in this if this is something that they, you know, they've been listening today, watching, and think, I'm quite interested? Would you recommend, is there any online stores, any forums? How would
yeah, so Facebook has killed everything that on a forum now. So my model club is actually on Facebook. Look for the Commies in Colorado, COMMIES. We have, if you're in Colorado, we've got our annual show. We call it Commies Fest. Look up Wonderfest if you're in Kentucky. There's conventions all over the place. The national, or well, I should say the international organization is still the IPMS, International Plastic Modeler Society. They're still active. They used to be a little bit fuddy-duddy with some of the older style models and military things like that. They've had quite a revolution. There's actually several people in the board that are in my club, so they've kind of had a revolution. It's much more opening and welcoming. So you can look at those types of organizations. Go to your local hobby shop. They're still out there. I know most of us think of a hobby shop. We think of like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby or something like that. There's still smaller ones out there. A lot of them are maybe a little bit harder to get to, but give them a phone call.
Yep.
Get on those. I also am a big believer in the power of doing solitary activities as a group. So, this is something that you do by yourself, right? I do it with my club. I do it. Sometimes that's the only time I get to build is when I'm hanging out with these people. And find a club, start a club. That's what I did when I moved to Colorado. I was like, I don't know anybody. Anyone want to be my friend?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Great advice, Dan. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. We will see you on later in the show. And I think now it's time for a little break.
See ya.
Thanks,
I'll be
Dan.
back, to coin a phrase.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristen. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin and a guest as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The Viewscreen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea-Bab. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome back, everybody. You're still with the Viewscreen. It's time to bring in our final guest for the day. So please welcome to the Viewscreen for his first appearance. It's Natali. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for agreeing to come on. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. I'm back from 2 weeks in Spain. Just been back for a week. And let me tell you, adjusting to Spanish meal times is an experience.
It's so late in the evening.
Having breakfast as late as 10, lunch as late as 4 or 5, and then dinner as late as 9 or 10 if you're on the early side.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
because that it was such a fun experience, and we already are planning on going back. I know a bunch of us from the Star Trek cruise are going to Sitges in around June, but what I'm talking about is my partners and I already want to go back again, and it's like maybe not for 2 weeks that time.
I thoroughly enjoyed all of your pictures. I was liking all of them. I'm like, oh, it looked wonderful.
I will be a little transparent. One of the reasons, and I always like me mentioning this, my mom had a bad accident like many years ago, but she gets to see my life through my Facebook. So since I wasn't going to be able to call her and talk it over, I decided, you know what, she can see all these things we're experiencing. And I posted a fair number of pictures to Facebook, but not nearly the volume that I was doing in Spain. So she got to see all of that as best as she could, and we had a lovely conversation.
Oh, how lovely. Oh, that's great. It was nice. I always feel like when you guys from America come over to Europe, it's like they're so much closer to me. It's having you on the continent.
We're finally in the same time zone.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So when we were on the cruise in February, March this year, one of the panels that they run was a D&D panel, and they had Todd Stashwick and Anthony Rapp, Will Wheaton. And I remember I was actually sat on the promenade level, and it was one of the ones that they put on the big screens. And I remember watching it thinking, I have absolutely no idea what any of this is, but everybody looks so enthused about it, and they're having a great time. And I hear as well that the actual theatre was like one of the best attended talk panels of the entire week. So it kind of got me and Amy were saying, we really need to bring Natali onto the Viewscreen and tell us a little bit about D&D, what it is, how it's played, and demystify it a little bit for us. So could you help us out, Natali? What is D&D? I understand it stands for Dungeons and Dragons. I got that bit.
So at its most bare bones, D&D is improv storytelling. The rules, the figurines, the maps, the whatever you have involved, that is completely extra, and most players or the person running the story can choose to include or not include them at their whim. They're there to provide structure. But at the end of the day, it's about, hey, I have a story that I think we as a group can tell together. You guys can make characters and we can wrap those stories together, or maybe they're just dressing for what you want to play. Yeah. I use a lot of role-playing games when I'm a player to examine character archetypes, because it's acting to an extent. Some people are playing a version of themselves, or they're playing someone they completely disagree with. To be blunt, I was one time running around it was a Wild West setting, but I was playing what essentially amounted to a fascist. She was a completely detestable character, but I wanted to examine why she thinks the way she thinks. And while I might not necessarily agree with her lines of thought, playing them out was an interesting experience, even though at the end of the day, I'm like, I would hate this person.
That's a little bit like
Right.
when you hear an actor say it's they have more fun playing like the bad guys or
Villain.
the villains. You know, they get to show more of their acting ability. So I wonder if there was an element of that there.
Well, I mean, one of the most common examples that we pull from Star Trek is the actress who played Kai Wynn was apparently one of the nicest people that any of these actors ever worked with. And it was just, or I recently was watching an interview with Peter Dinklage, who the actor playing his father would apologize in between takes because of the truly atrocious things his character was saying to Peter as his son.
Yeah, is that on Game of Thrones? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So getting back to D&D, like that is really what it boils down to. Dungeons and Dragons is merely the most well-known system. It was originally created by Gary Gygax with a few others, and it was initially started out of what is called wargaming, which is it's really like minifigures, like you're arranging armies and you're going at each other in some sort of prearranged combat mechanic. But Gary and a few others were like, well, we can do these perhaps more sprawling, maybe involve a dungeon or I was about to say, or a dragon. And eventually, like the very first Dungeons and Dragons rules, you didn't play a class in as much as you played an elf, and your elf was always a ranger. You played a human, and the human was always a wizard. There wasn't a lot of what we would consider a variety of choice, but it goes on to become a much bigger thing, multiple editions, and it's far and away not the only role-playing system available, but it is the most widely known. So often, as I wanted to run a Star Trek Adventures game on the cruise last year, but things got away from me. I had to sell that as like, okay, it's Star Trek, but like D&D. And I believe I sent you guys slides, pictures for like the examples of Star Trek Adventures books, and I could explain what those books mean and things like that.
Yeah. Do we have those, Amy?
No, I do apologize.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
No worries. So when you mentioned about the kind of the story and it evolves, I'm so logical in my thought. I'm not a creative person. I'm very science-like. So I look for almost like a complete recipe or a complete story, and then you would act it. But from what I understand of D&D, it kind of evolves as you go. So how does that work?
I think you have to be more flexible with the story. Is that?
It depends. There are fully front to back published adventures that describe how you approach each situation, if the players are successful or unsuccessful at this stage. My partners and I tend to be a lot more loosey-goosey, as it's called. As Amy said, a little more flexible, because bluntly, some of my players are... the term Chaos Goblin isn't really accurate. It's the way some of them game, that they look at a situation and it's like, how can I alter this to my benefit? So if the game isn't thinking of players treating it that way, it can get messy. So pre-published adventures are available, and there's tons of them. People write them and publish them on the internet all the time. A lot of the games I've been part of, or the games I have run, I have a general overarching story that I'm trying to achieve. And then each session where the players and I are getting together and going through a scenario, I have what I call story beats, things that I want to occur. And everything that's happening in between is, like Amy says, improv. How can I get this emotional moment to occur? Or are they encountering this particular person or issue in this session? And if it doesn't happen, it's not as if I've taken a left turn at Albuquerque. I can introduce it later, or perhaps they've gone down a route I didn't even think of, and it's better. Because I have had players. So one time I was running a Star Trek Adventures game, and it was set in just a couple of years after the Dominion War. So I had a whole bunch of possibilities for them to explore because it's starting at DS9. Like they were stationed there, and I had all these political intrigue stories, all these pirate stories they could have gone down, and it literally just came down to which story hook, as they're called, the players picked up on. They started going down one, and I was like, okay, we're rolling along. And then my partner Victor said something about the mirror universe, and in the back of my head I'm like, that's too good, I have to make this an alternate reality story. And it completely diverged the entire story. He doesn't know that he did that, or well, he does now, but like at the time. And that's one of the things that makes D&D or games like it a lot of fun, because it's not just it's a very give and take. So games can fall apart if that relationship fails, but they can also succeed wildly whenever you're letting your players have agency, contributing just as much to the story as what you're bringing to it.
Now, about how long would it take, like pre-work, to get the story molded enough where you feel ready to use it in a game?
That depends on three things. The first thing is the system. Like I always approach a story from what game system benefits that type of story. If I'm looking for something that's going to be a lot more politics and intrigue, I'm not going to go for a system that prioritizes combat.
Right.
And there's a handful of systems, and I'm not going to get into the weeds about it, but like that's my first question. What type of story am I trying to tell? And then the second one is, do I have the players who would be interested in that story? Because if I go into a game where all I want to do is talk high-level politics and intrigue, and the only thing my players want to do is hack and slash, then we're not having a meeting of the minds on like. And I actually encountered that in my first Star Trek game. I wanted to run this very classic Star Trek political intrigue, and one of my players just wanted more of a comedy campaign, and I have a system for that, but it wasn't what I was trying to do.
Right.
And then the last thing is, what is the story I'm trying to tell, and how long do I think that's going to take? I'd say it could take anything from so one of the types of stories that people will tell are one shots. That is a story that can be accomplished within a single session. And a lot of those you could probably write in a couple hours, maybe, if you wanted to even put pen to paper, or maybe you just come up with a prompt at the moment. One of the fun things about these game systems is they know people want to be able to come up with their own stuff, but they also provide all the tools necessary if they don't. So D&D, like I have the Dungeon Master's Guide right here. Literally an entire chapter of like tables on story prompts. Like you start in a bar, you roll a dice, and it's like a thief runs off with your bag of money, and then. I personally have taken weeks to construct the story that I'm currently running. We're a year into the story. I don't even think I'm a third of the way through.
Wow.
It will, to be fair, this game I've had on the back burner for roughly 15 years because I didn't have the right people. I didn't have the confidence, and I didn't have the experience.
Which brings me on to, how did you get started as the storyteller role, dungeon master? You know, how long were you playing D&D yourself before you took on this role?
So I was hanging out with my friends in college, and they were going to start up a D&D game, and I had never played. So I was like, why don't can I join in, but as like a snotty side character who just makes witty commentary and doesn't actually participate. And that ended with me actually making a character. And that was 2009. And then off and on, I was playing games. I helped those same friends and I helped build a version of Dungeons and Dragons to accommodate a particular IP that we like, which is called Dragon Ball Z. And that got me really interested in telling the story aspect, because in the building of it, I was like, okay, in Dragon Ball Z, they do this. This is the story reason they do this. We've got the mechanics to do it. Now, why is it we have to use this somehow? So fast forward, I moved to Chicago. I've never run a game yet. And so we're roughly 13. And then I meet my partner, Victor, and his partner, James, and I just start playing different role-playing games with them. Dungeons and Dragons, a sort of urban fantasy game series called World of Darkness. I played a ton of those games with him, and eventually Star Trek Adventures comes out, and I'm like, I know Star Trek backwards and forwards. If I can learn this system, I could run this. And that's when Star Trek Adventures was actually the first role-playing game I ever ran the story. And then that gave me the confidence and experience with just running a story in general. It's like, oh, these other systems, which I have experience with, I can look at. It wasn't until last year that I looked at D&D and was like, this is a fairly complex system that I have a lot of experience on and off with. And it has all the pieces I need. I finally felt like I had all the resources lined up to run this rather large story I'd been planning since I was in college.
That must have been a good feeling. Something that you've been working on for so long, actually getting to deliver it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been so many games between now and then that have given me help figuring out specific themes, like how do you organize a gaming session that's sort of supposed to evoke horror, or the one thing that I will say about my player group is it's hard to hit them in the emotions, because they're just not those type of players. You have to be emotionally invested, and some people don't game with their emotions. My partner, Victor, is very much easy to do that with, but when it's only I have a rather large player group, 1 out of 7 people, it's not as, it's interesting, but yeah, I will agree. It's been really satisfying to come around to a story that I've had boiling in the back of my head for quite some time.
I bet.
It looks nothing like it did when I was 2009, but it's still the same spirit.
Yeah. Same question that we were asked Dan earlier, actually. If people are listening, watching, and, like me and Amy, we've heard of D&D, but we didn't really know too much about it, maybe you've inspired them to want to get involved. How would you advise someone to start playing? You know, do they need to? How would they find a group?
And I have a follow-up question. Like, if you find a group, are you not stuck, but is it best to just be with that group, or can you go around and just be a player? Because like being a storyteller like you, like that scares me to death. Let me just be a player. Can you pop around to different groups, or is it not like that?
So there's actually a bunch of avenues for both of these. So obviously, when I got into the hobby, it was more like you had to meet someone either through your own friend group or like a local gaming store, because a lot of D&D games or similarly role-playing games will get a lot of play at gaming stores because that's their bread and butter. That has shifted diametrically, especially with COVID, to online platforms like Discord, Reddit, and other places where you have these rather large communities of people who are like, hey, I want to be in a game, or hey, I want to run a game, I need players. I will admit, I don't have experience with the online sphere, and I hear both good and bad from it. Like, it's like a dating website. You don't know what you're getting into until you do it.
Okay.
But these are wonderful avenues filled with, if I had had access to these when I was getting onto the internet for the first time, I would have been involved in gaming much sooner because I just didn't know anybody. And to Amy's point, like a lot of people will go onto these types of online platforms and it's just like, oh, I want to be a player. I have some character ideas, or, oh, you're running a game. Can I do this, and this? There's so many resources available online now for getting players together, either locally or over online platforms like Zoom.
Yeah.
That it's really fascinating how big the hobby has actually gotten.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons that I certainly wanted to hear more about it, when you hear it's so popular, it's like, what am I missing here? Why is it so big?
Just to put it in perspective, so I go to Gen Con every year with my partner Victor, or at least we were. Only a couple years ago, they had their highest attendance ever. I mean, Gen Con's usually a very large event in Indianapolis every year. It's basically the gaming convention. It is the STLV of gaming.
I got it.
Want a big new game to drop and have like a whole lot of press and information about it, Gen Con's where you want to do it. That's maybe not as true these days with the internet, but Gen Con being a huge in-person attendance event, the idea that the hobby has grown so large that they will consistently sell out of day passes and then, weekend passes, and then individual days might sell out to the point where only a couple years ago is the most attended it's ever been, and it only ever gets bigger, which is just mind-blowing. And then you're wading through all of this and you're just seeing, if there weren't as many people into gaming as there would not be nearly as many varieties of games. I could spend the next 30 minutes listing off titles, and I don't even have that many memorized, and I would not touch the top 10.
Wow.
There are so many, and there's new ones every year, and some of them fail, some of them don't. But the idea that there's that much excitement and energy in the community gives you a demonstration of just how popular the hobby has become.
Yeah. Let's bring in Kristen and Dan and hear their thoughts as well. I'm keen to know if are any of you guys D&D players or storytelling these types of games. Kristen, have you been involved in the past in this?
I have not. Not for lack of desire or anything. It's just growing up in the church where I did grow up, D&D was part of the Satanic Panic, and it was considered the Devils game. So it was.
Nice.
Wow.
So by the time I realized it was all gobbledygook, everyone was so advanced. I'm like, well, okay, I'll just sit and admire from the sides.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, well, it's not the only thing the church has destroyed for me, but
that's another episode of the Viewscreen.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Dan, do you remember that? The satanic panic?
Oh, absolutely. So, I'm going to give a little history lesson between me and Amy here. So I actually had the old white box set of D&D. Oh yeah, I like I said, I've been a nerd all my life and probably 3 past lives too. And I put all that stuff away when I decided I needed to meet girls, right? So I put away all my models, I put away all my rockets, I put away my ham radio, I put away D&D, all that jazz. Well, after I got married, I'm like, yeah, let's bring all that crap out. So yeah, over in the other room, I still got all my old BattleTech stuff. I've got all my old D&D stuff. I'm running new games with my son's school. Yeah, it's an entirely new world, like what Natali was saying, from way back then. The game is no longer focused or has its roots in a war game environment. It's much more about collective storytelling. It's much more inclusive. It's amazing the revolution that it's had. Natali, I did have one question for you. One thing that killed my groups back when I was doing a lot of this was scheduling, especially as we were entering adulthood and didn't have the time to go do things because we wanted a social life outside of the round table. How do you handle drop in and drop out stuff, especially like new players or people who are never familiar with it, with all the old grognards around it, running them over?
So that is always going to be a problem, but I think they've done a very good job in recent years of describing how you can. There's always going to be tools available that they describe, but it's always going to be a case-by-case basis. I've had times where a player can't show up and everybody else still wants to game, or half the group all of a sudden can't show up. And it's like, well, if one person's missing, definitely we can still do it. We can just update this other person when they come back. But if half of everybody is going to be gone, we obviously can't. And then it also depends on the format. So when I was running online games during the pandemic, there was never a missed session, because even if someone was like sick, like they just were not going to be going out anywhere, they could still participate by observing the game. I have been part of a game that is online where adulthood has struck with such regularity that we're supposed to be doing it every other week. We're doing lucky to do it once a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's the game I get to be a player in, so I'm like super disappointed.
Oh yeah.
But there's just so many available tools. Like if a person is going to be out of town, but they've still got that time free, they could possibly attend electronically. My D&D group, which meets every other Sunday, one of my partners is in California, and therefore he's always remote. The only time he can't attend is if he's traveling on that day. So you've got a mix of both in-person and virtual sometimes at your games.
Mm-hmm. How do you handle that? You just have like an iPad at the table then?
We've been increasingly getting better. So to give a little bit of an idea of the setup, we do have, because it's D&D and there's a lot of rules around movement and enemy positions and things, we do actually have a physical map for that. And we have set up a, much like this, we have an HD camera that we have set up on top of the map so that it's facing down so that he sees where everything is. And then we have a secondary camera that shows the group. There's a microphone. There's he's going to be up on a Zoom screen. So it's not as if the only thing he sees is this wargaming type setup, but it at least lets him play and then make decisions in combat as if he was there. It's not a perfect setup, but there is no perfect setup.
Wonderful.
I was just going to say too, because Dan, you had mentioned something as well about how during COVID and during all of that, everybody was so creative in terms of how to pivot to online to react to the time and the situation in which we found ourselves. But it's really cool to see that we have found something kind of positive from that, where now we've kept some of that from something that was forced upon us, but we found that it actually can be a very useful tool in our lives. And so I think that's something really beneficial to look at, that, you know, pivoting out of lockdown and whatnot, we're still taking some of the technological advances and how we can actually see it enrich our lives post-COVID. So yeah, just a little musing I had.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Discord basically came out of, is online role-playing?
I know that it also came out of a lot of businesses use it as an internal like work communication system. I don't know Discord. I didn't know about Discord until COVID and way after it had already been established. So I could speak honestly to its origins.
Yeah, I might be wrong there.
Yeah.
Natali, thank you so much for introducing us and explaining a little more about D&D and telling us your passion for it as well. It's been really lovely hearing you talk about the different varieties. I didn't even know there was a Star Trek version. I guess that would be my route in, much like yours. So I might look into that.
Yes.
Well, if I can pull together my brain cells, I will definitely be at Star Trek Las Vegas this year, and I could possibly run a one-shot for people who want to participate.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. So,
Right.
yeah, oh, wait, hang on. Where are we? We're in October. So, STLV 2025, that'll be, won't it?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Right, we're there.
If
Good.
you need some miniatures painted, let me know.
Before we start to wrap up the show, Dan, I believe you want to show us around your little workshop. So
yeah, if you don't mind,
down on screen,
see if
let
I
us
can
see it. Thanks, guys.
turn my camera around the other direction here. Let's see. Hang on a second. Give me one moment. Well, maybe I can't. All right. Well, you're going to get selfies of my workshop. So here is basically my building bench. This is where I do all my main stuff. You can actually see my radio over there. So this has all of my hobbies in this room. So that's why it's such a mess. Anyway, so this is my main assembly area. It's not very big, but I don't build a lot of big stuff anymore. But I've got a nice set of lights and everything. Hey Siri, let's build something. It's not going to work. Do it again. Hey Siri, let's build something. Come on.
The pressures of live TV.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. The bogons are attacking, right? Well, so anyway, I've got a nice temperature controlled light up here, so that I can change the temperature of what I'm hand painting or something like that. And then over here is my 3D printer that then exhausts out. Let's see, I'm backwards here. So it exhausts out over to my spray booth. Oh, and there's my easel for my landscape stuff that I do. Anyway, yeah. So I'm backwards here. Yeah, there's my 3D printer that's in that. It's actually a pot grow tent, which is pretty easy to get in Colorado, and it just has that dryer hose that then goes over to my spray booth and into the back of my spray booth here. I've got a 350 let's see if I can show it. I got a 350 CFM squirrel cage explosion-proof fan back there to take all of the fumes that are in my spray booth and exhaust them on out. Now, again, I can't reach anything, so now we're going to try this with my phone to see if it'll work this time. Save my remaining brain cells. Oh, come on.
Oh.
Save my remaining brain cells. She's saying no. Yeah, there we go. There, my booth just started up. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so then that's in there. And so then that's what I use my airbrush in. There's one of my airbrushes right there. It's essentially a small, it's basically a small paint can. You fill up that top in there, sends up air through the black hose right there, mixes it in the front, blah, blah, blah. I think ReaperCon online has actually got one of my airbrush classes. I go around teaching a lot of art and airbrush classes at various conventions. So that's another thing to check at is go to various conventions if you want to find people. Not just modeling conventions. Like one of my most popular ones is actually an anime convention here to teach art classes at. So we do a lot of modeling and various art things there. Yeah. So anyway, that's the stuff I'm working on right there. I've got a bust of Baron Harkonnen from Dune that I'm working on.
Nice.
Brilliant. That's great, Dan. Thank you so much for showing us around. I do have one very quick question. Does your other half, does she say you've got one room, you've got to keep all your stuff in that one room, I don't want it elsewhere in the house?
Yeah.
Pretty full
my old
on.
house, I actually had the whole basement, but this is now just a single room that I've got. So that's why it's so overstuffed with everything, right? But yeah, and I also have all my inspirational stuff. Like this is one of Rick Sternbach's book covers that he did for an Asimov novel, and
well,
got,
it's a fantastic little man cave. I've got to say,
more stuff
it
of his up
gives
there.
you a lot of joy.
Yeah, it's my little bit of happiness.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Right, Amy, shall we see what we've got coming up next week on our final episode? We've just cut Dan off. We'll bring him back in a moment. So coming up next week, it is our final episode 10. And we are following suit from season 1. We've got Jim returning with Trivia with Jim. We're welcoming back to the view screen Christian Carter, who's going to take us through lots of merchandise available for Christmas for anyone who might be thinking ahead to what to buy. And Joe Keegan is going to join us with some fantastic cocktail recipes as well. So it's we're going to go out on a high next week with a bumper episode, a big celebration. And depending on which way the week goes for you guys in America, you might be needing a drink and a party. So we're going to keep the energy high next week, hopefully celebrating a win for a certain lady. So looking forward to that.
Yes, a super extended season finale for season 2. It's been so wonderful. And I want to thank all of you watching, all of you listening to our podcast or on replay. Just thank you so much. And of course, a huge thank you to our amazing David, who is our executive producer, making things backstage run smoothly, and to Kristen for doing our news, and especially our guests, Natali and Dan. So let's bring them on so they can say their goodbyes.
Yeah,
Natali, where can people find you out there?
My Instagram is Cackling Hyena, which is just a wonderful pun for me. And it's mostly pictures of food, me working out, or my dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Natali.
Yes, thank you.
See you later. And Dan, how about you? Where can people find you on the internet?
You know, I don't have much of a social presence for my hobbies, and I just use Facebook to scream into the void about the dumpster fire that the world is. So,
Now, you have recently joined our Discord server, so check him
yeah,
out
I am on
there.
there.
Yeah.
I'm Jonas Calhoun on there.
Yeah, what is Jonas Calhoun?
Okay, so actually, Natali probably should have heard this. So, I was running an old game of Deadlands, which is it's a Western supernatural themed RPG, and I needed the name for the big bad, and so I was like, what the heck do I come up with? So I grabbed the phone book back when we had those things, you know, the white pages that, you know,
Yes.
they had a big, this is for the younger kids, had a big listing of all of the phone numbers that everybody had. So I grabbed the white pages and I'm like, yeah, Jonas. All right, that works. Do another one. Calhoun. Hey, that even sounds Western. I'm good. And I've kept it ever since.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's cool. Thank you so much, Dan.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
thank
bet. I've got a question for Amy, and it's probably going to put her on the spot. We haven't really talked much about this kind of stuff, but I got to know. I wasn't a nerd like this outwardly back in high school. Where were you not? Why were you not flying your freak flag either?
No, I didn't. I mean, so you know my mom. She introduced me to Next Gen, and I enjoyed it. But you know, there was life in university. But it wasn't until 2000 that's when I got my flag and
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
took
I
it
was
up
gonna
to
say, I
2000.
don't remember you
No.
being like this, and I put it all away when, like I said, when I had to meet girls, and I met you and and Lori and everybody else, and the Satanic Panic and all that kind of stuff. So that's the other reason why I've got so many various hobbies is I move from one to another as things allow. But yeah, okay, so that's interesting. I didn't realize that, because I was a staunch Next Gen watcher. I was the only one in the dorm room that had a TV, and so everybody in college would come around my room.
They're out there. They're out there. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
You bet. Hey, this was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming on.
I'd be more than happy
Yay.
to be on anytime. This was great.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Kristen, as always, where can people find you?
Of course, I'm on Instagram at kstrats, and if you're interested in wanting to go take a peek, we added a new family member to our little group yesterday, little Benjamin. So he's sleeping right now. I'm not going to bother him, but he is a little tuxedo boy. And so we adopted him yesterday. He's just a joy. So I've got some photos online. So does Justin. And then, of course, I'm on the Facebook, BQN, and my favorite, Reddit, at User Garrick's Fan Club. Very interesting discussion going on Reddit Star Trek this morning of what is your favorite Star Trek reference on a non-Trek show?
Oh,
so
that's nice.
So I think mine is the Simpsons Christmas episode where they do an inference that the Christmas Carol was taking place, but on the Enterprise. So that was probably my favorite. So, you know, if you have any interesting or your favorite times that another show mentioned Trek, hit me up and let me know what it was for you.
Nice.
Brilliant.
So fun.
We look forward to seeing you next week for our finale, Kristen.
One more quick thing, just my plea to people out there who have not voted or you're not planning on voting. As your neighbor to the north, a lot depends on this, not just for the States, but for North America as a whole and really the world. We are a global village. Whatever happens there on Tuesday is going to have a massive tsunami effect across the world. So please make sure that your voice is heard. And if anyone ever finds themselves feeling not safe, you have a haven up here in Canada to come and visit.
Well said. Well said, Kristen.
Okay, love you all.
Now, Kristen, we have a comment in the chat. Ron would like to know if Ben is named after Benjamin Sisko.
Maybe. It's a little kitty. He's a little tuxedo kitty, and there might be a little Star Trek inference. It's kind of a double thing. Our other kitten, her name is Jinx from the Drag Race franchise,
Oh.
and Jinx's sister queen is Ben de la Creme.
Ben de la Creme, yeah.
So it
Ah.
kind of plays to matching Jinx with Ben, but also maybe a certain Mr. Cisco.
Yes.
So little Ben is out there, and
Love
he's
that.
just
Love
a little
that.
snuggle bug.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Kristen. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Bye.
And Amy, please remind everyone where they can find you.
Well, yeah, sure. Find me, listen to me on Union Federation and in our Discord server. Again, the link is in our show notes and in our Facebook group, BQN Collective. Kelvin, where can people find you out there?
I'm also on Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or you can come and get me directly on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline. We would love to hear. Oh, sorry, Amy.
Oh, no, go for it.
Thank you. We would love to hear what you thought of today's show. And we do hope that you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or our Discord server to continue the discussions there. You can find the invites in the show notes here.
Huge thank you to our Patreon members for your ongoing support to the network and to our show. I just want to put it out there, like our network will never have any commercials, and it's because of the support that you give us. So thank you. If you would like to donate, go to patreon.com/BQN, and you can support us there and get our little perks that we have for you.
And if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still show some support by talking about the show with your friends, sharing our posts, adding comments, and just generally putting us out there.
Well, we will be back next week. Hope to see you then.
For now, it's
Bye.
time to end transmission. Have a good week, everyone.